How is everyone doing today? I hope everyone's doing really well. And I hope that you had a really great weekend. And or your Monday has started well. Or whenever you watch this. Yeah. Alright, well, we'll give everyone just another minute or two. Sorry, I know it's about 15 minutes late. But yeah. We're working on being there at 9 every single week. I know last week I was early, but hopefully after this upcoming break, I'll be 9 every single time until we change it to a bit earlier, because I am trying to change it a bit earlier. I just need to work on my workflow a little bit so it doesn't interfere with the family as much. All right. All right, so let's get started with my clickbait. First, I was very excited about my title. I thought that it was very catchy. That being said, I don't actually think that Microsoft failed that much, except for it was kind of uninteresting. I was kind of excited about it because for the most part, I thought Microsoft was just staying at Windows 10. There was, or I would have called it Windows X, but there was no real reason to actually make a new version. And so I thought because they were going with a new version, they were actually going to release something really large. And for the most part, it just looked like Windows 10, maybe slightly improved. I mean, the UI changes looked really good. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it just wasn't that interesting. The TPM, everything that everybody's upset about, I don't think is that actually that big of a deal. As TPM and those types of things have been in the works, and it's for security. And as we've seen over the years, security, you cannot go light on security. It is just that important. And so requiring Secure Boot and TPM 2.0, I don't think is that big of a deal. It sucks. My desktop is I have a 6th gen i7 in it, so it's way outside what could upgrade to Windows 11. But I'm willing to accept that. I need to update my PC, which is actually hopefully in the works later this year, as long as chips become available and I can actually buy them for a reasonable price. All right, that being said, one thing I forgot to mention at the start of this stream is that remember the next 2 weeks I am taking off. So the next 2 weekends I'm not going to be having this show. I will miss you guys. I will start right back right after that. Let's see, what date will that be? Let's see, I'll be missing the 4th and the 11th. So the 18th is when I'll be back. That being said, I actually have 2 videos both almost done, so I might work on some of those a little bit. So you might get some videos during those times, but you won't get these live streams. And I'm not going to guarantee that I work on those videos either. I'm taking a little bit of time off. So just, yeah, be cognizant of that. I am working on some pretty cool videos, though. And they've been taking extra time because they're extra cool. At least I think they're extra cool. But anyways, working on them. All right, so back to the Windows 11. Really, it wasn't that big of a deal. I was hoping that they were going to do some more with open source. Unfortunately, the only thing that I got out of it was Android apps were going to work. And I believe they came back and stated that you could sideload Android apps, which is cool. And probably means that they have something under the hood more with Linux. But a WSL2 has already been really cool, as I've shown in some of my videos of the architecture of Windows and WSL2. And so honestly, they didn't expand on any of those types of things, and that's what I really would have liked to see. Windows already had one of the best windowing experiences, yeah. Now, I do believe they haven't ever seen i3 as a windowing manager because they were like, hey, we're the only ones that can window this way, and I'm pretty sure Linux i3 has been able to window that way for centuries. Probably not centuries, but for a very long time. All right, let's move on to security and not my clickbait title. I really didn't, I don't know. I didn't find the Windows release really, it was a letdown just because there was just not enough there. All right. So this is an interesting one, is Microsoft actually signed a rootkit. So basically a lot of times the signed drivers are kind of this trusted source. And I'm not too surprised that this happened. They sign a bunch of drivers, and so it's probably going to happen. And it also was not in any server type driver or anything like that. So, and you had to have root anyways. You had to have elevated privileges. So you kind of were screwing yourself if you got NetFilter installed. But that being said, it does mean that, Microsoft really needs to look over how this actually got into their pipeline, how it got signed, and how it got accepted. And so I'm not too worried, but if this happens again anytime soon, mistakes happen. It's just how they recover from them. So I'm interested to see how Microsoft recovers from this. Another, supply chain attacks have literally been the staple of 2020 and 2021. And crypto mining is the other staple of the security. So this is basically supply chain attacks on the Python package repository that is infiltrating it to mine cryptocurrency. So of course, that's what we do. It's 2021. We're going to do a sophisticated supply chain attack to mine cryptocurrencies. And that's what they're doing. So it's this article is worth a read. It doesn't actually go that technical in it, which I was trying to find a more technical one for you guys. And if I find it, I will link it down below along with this article for you guys. But yeah, just be sure you know what you're using, who makes it, and try to shore up your pipeline, especially if it's running infrastructure. I reported this bug. I don't know. I found it funny, and this is why I'm sharing it with you guys. I found a bug. I don't think the Kubernetes client for Python sanitizes their strings. Because if you actually name your context null and do a current context of null, it's going to die on you. It doesn't sanitize that string, and it actually thinks it's a null string. So I'm not big on Python, and I'm not sure if this is how it's supposed to work, or it works in client Go and kubectl. So I feel like we should be able to get it working. But anyways, let's move on to the very actual interesting. This is what I promised I was going to do. I was going to open source this. It's already under the Apache 2, the only approved license here. Well, MIT and Apache 2. But yeah, let's go ahead and make this public. I don't even know where that is. Where do I don't do this that often. One second, my mic's in the way. There we go. Oh, manage access. This is where it is. Oh, I need a password. All right. Let's see. No, we don't want a private repository. Danger zone. Here we go. Change visibility, make public. I don't type this ever. I just copy and paste. Here we go. There you guys go. All right, if you guys are confused as to what this is, let's go check it out. This is my class material. And actually, I'm going to put my introduction to containers in here as well. It needs a little bit of work, and as soon as I get that done, I'm going to throw that up in here. But the reason I'm releasing this is, one, everything I do on this channel, I want to be open source. And this, for one, I think could actually be better if the community got involved and helped out with it. So if you look in here, there is my introduction to Kubernetes. I am working on part 1, and I will be recording part 1 later in July, not this month. So probably towards the end of July, I'll be recording it. So I would love if you guys went through part 1 and went through all of these lessons and gave me your honest feedback. Make a pull request if you want to. If you don't want to make a pull request, that's fine. Give me feedback and let me know how I can make these better for learning. Then I'm going to make videos around them, and then I'm actually going to make some labs around this lesson. So all my classes from now on are going to be open source in this repository, so you can come here and find them. You can copy and paste. I'm putting nice things like these cheat sheets in here so that if you're wanting to just find out how to deploy a pod from the command line, they're in there. And yeah, so feel free to contribute to this. It will always be Apache 2 or MIT. I think it's Apache 2. Yeah. I usually do Apache 2. Sometimes I do MIT. Anyways, so it's now open source. The link will be down there. Feel free to contribute to it. I will be recording later this month. Please make sure to give me your feedback. Let's move on. So these are some really other cool GitHub repositories about learning that I hope my GitHub repository gets as cool as these people's do. So basically this one here is the fundamentals of cloud computing in 6 months, and that's their kind of time framing for it. Really cool. I clicked through their lessons. I didn't actually go through all of them, but it's a nice open source lesson. And yeah, I think that you guys should look into it, especially if you're trying to understand cloud computing better. I was really getting into their networking essentials, and I thought that it was a really good coverage of their networking essentials. And so go give these guys some loves, and since it's an open source project, you guys could actually contribute to making it better yourselves, which is what I hope you do with my repository. All right, so then we go to this one. I think that this one's fantastic, ML YouTube courses. I hope that my Kubernetes course gets added to this. That's kind of one of my goals. I'd love to have somebody be like, yeah, this is a really great YouTube course. So if you're looking to do some more learning, which if you're on my channel, probably interested a little bit in learning, you should check out these YouTube courses that are out there, and hopefully one day my YouTube courses make it here. And then the last one here is just some awesome computer science YouTube channels. Again, I hope my YouTube channel at some point makes it on this list, but I thought I would open up because I actually already watched some of these, so I thought it was a pretty good list. And yeah, so let's get on to cloud computing now. I know that this usually happens after cloud computing, but it was kind of something I wanted to talk about, and it was important to me because I want to make my class as good as it can be, and I can do that with your help. All right, so cloud. This one flummoxes me, mostly because I like using that word, but I am confused. Why would, if anybody had the chance of paying now or paying later for no extra price, like it doesn't cost me to pay later, and like they didn't say that you got a discount for paying in advance. So like I don't understand. I'm confused. If I don't get a discount for paying in advance, why would I do it? And if I don't have a penalty for paying later, then why would I not just pay later? I don't know. I'm confused by this feature release. I know that there was a team of brilliant engineers that made this possible. Have no idea why. If you're one of those engineers would like to have an interview, I would love to have an interview with you. All right, let's move on. So I talked about step functions last week with you guys, and at that time, I didn't find some good concrete pricing, and I went through reading about their pricing because it was a little confusing, so I wanted to go over it with you guys just so that we're all on the up and up. First, it's 4,000 state transitions, so basically each step is a state transition. That's how I understand it, and that's how it looks through my testing, that each transition in that is a step and a step transition. So you get 4,000 state transition per month. At first I was going to say that seems kind of expensive, or like not a whole lot, because like you could do quite a few state transitions in a little pipeline, but really it's not bad. Also, when you consider that it is 2.5 cents for another 1,000 state like, I don't know, you could run a couple thousand, like 10,000 and still be paying less than $10, or be paying less than $1. So it's really not bad. The one thing that gets a little confusing here that you need to be looking out for is basically there's also a cost for duration and memory usage. Now, I haven't quite worked out the full details on this, but basically it charges you memory in chunks of 64 megabytes. And now I have never had one that uses more than the minimum 64 megabytes. But again, I've just been playing around, so we'll see. And then there's also some charge for duration. And they do this in their GB seconds. But this seems very reasonable. If you're talking about hours, it looks like it's probably just whatever their EC2 instances charge. So it seems all very reasonable. All right, this next piece of news I consider cloud news and falls under AWS, Azure, and GCP, but is neither of those, and that is Rocky Linux. Now, if you guys don't know what Rocky Linux is or why it exists or why you need it, Rocky Linux came about because CentOS or CentOS, my boss calls it CentOS, I call it CentOS, who knows? Basically, Red Hat decided that they were tired of people actually using CentOS and they wanted those people to pay for RHEL, and kind of, they didn't destroy the project because it still exists. It just isn't a downstream of Red Hat. So what Rocky Linux is a open source version of Red Hat. But what's really cool is it is binary compatible, which basically means if you are a RHEL 8.4, I believe it is. Yeah, 8.4. I looked like I checked that, but like there's nothing on here that says 8.4, but it's 8.4. If you're a Red Hat, a RHEL Red Hat Enterprise Linux user at 8.4 and you want to switch to Rocky, it will work. It's the exact same thing. It's just the open source build of the Red Hat distribution. So this is really cool, especially for a lot of teams. I know it's cool for me personally because I like running enterprise in my home, but I don't want to pay for the enterprise. I have no need for the support or anything like that. So Rocky Linux serves that, but it also serves a really great base for your containers. If you're wanting to build containers and not really worried about the base OS, things like Rocky Linux and the likes is a really great place to start building your enterprise containers. So Rocky Linux was released, and that's super cool and really good. So now we're done with cloud news. I am going to try to bookmark these when I go from cloud news and to other things. So this is just open source news in general now. Rust 1.53 has been released. This is like the biggest, this into iterator is for arrays is basically the biggest deal of this release, which is kind of a cool thing. If you do Rust into iterator for arrays, is it just saves you some code and makes things cleaner. And yeah, there's some other stuff, but it's out there, so the links will be down there. So if you're into Rust, I will throw this down. GitHub 14 is out, or GitLab 14 is out. I figured I needed to cover this since I always cover GitHub things. So GitHub basically is the competitor to GitLab. They both have their open source. The makers of Jira also have one. I don't remember what it is. Nobody uses it. Bitbucket? I think it's Bitbucket. Nobody uses that. So anyways, GitLab is pretty cool. GitLab 14 does more with DevOps and really more with GitOps as a whole. And really was the focus of GitLab 14, and I would say even GitLab 13, they had been really working on it. So if you're looking for a self-hosted solution, if you really need that self-hosted and don't want a cloud solution, I recommend GitLab. Now, I generally use GitHub because that's where open source is created. This next piece of news is really cool, and I think the way to go. Canonical, one of what I think is the best distribution of Linux and the best open source distribution of Linux. And we can go into why I think Canonical does such a great job of being an open source distribution. But one of the things that they did was Blender. They are now supporting the open source Blender, and one of the really great things is they're basically supplying support for Blender, an open source project, and they're giving, I'm going to say half, but they're giving a certain amount of what they make from Blender support back to Blender. So not only are they going to have developers working on supporting Blender on Linux, but they're bringing, you know, enterprise level support to this project, but they are actually going to be funneling money from this support into the Blender project itself. So this is super cool, and I really like where this is going, and I really appreciate Canonical for doing things like this. It's one of the reasons I think that they're one of the best open source Linux distributions out there, but there's some other reasons as well, and I could make a whole video on that. Maybe I should. Google released this. This is a note. This is sad right here. It got scribbled all over, and so they had to lock it down. And I'm ashamed that we or whoever did that. I didn't do it, but that's a shame, and it makes it much harder for people to contribute back to it. So you abuse it, you lose it. We discussed that last week. Anyways, basically it needs a name because a shared vulnerability format for open source packages is a mouthful, and the acronym is ASVFOSSP. Yeah, it's probably not great. So we need to work on a name as a community. But more than a name, what this basically does, this is something that we've needed for a while, because we have a bunch of vulnerability databases where we have stored, you know, CVEs and open source projects that have vulnerabilities and things like this, and they're scattered all over the place. And there's no real good way to share that information. There's no way to share that information. And that's what this is looking to solve. This basically a format for these databases to share their vulnerabilities and whatnot, so that everything can be more cohesive. And so it's easier for you to find if you have a vulnerability or not. And so I think it's actually really cool. I appreciate that they put this out there. They put a lot of thought into this. This is a long document. I did not read all 19 pages, so, you know, maybe, yeah, I don't know. Actually, a lot of these are just statuses. Good. I was going to say, I did look at the Rust implementation here, but it's pretty good. Pretty good definition, so I don't know. Give this a thumbs up. There's no way to do it now since I had to lock it down. But yeah, anyways, it's something to be looking forward to. All right. Yep, Apple at it again. Honestly, you know what my biggest problem with this is? Not their 30% commission. It's the fact that my wife got an iPad Pro, and I was going to make a video of doing an open source contribution. This iPad Pro is a Mac 1 Mini, super powerful, super fast, 16 gigs of memory. She wanted it for drawing. I was like, hey, babe, can I borrow it and make a video about programming and making an open source contribution on an M1 MacBook, or not MacBook Pro, but Mac iPad Pro. I don't know why I had such a hard time with that. But anyways, and the problem comes down to, I can't install a compiler. Can't install Rust. I can't install a terminal. I can't install any of this stuff. So it's kind of a letdown, because it's a super powerful machine that I can't use. I forgot that I didn't switch my screen back, so you guys cannot see any of the stuff that I'm showing you. But that's okay. That's okay. I meant to. I meant to not show you my screen. You guys don't want to see this. It's rough. Anyways, it's not about their commission. It's their walled garden, and I've always had a problem with their walled garden. So let's switch back so you guys can see what I'm talking about. There we go. There we go. Anyways, it's not much of a garden because I couldn't program on it. All right, so at first I was a little upset because I was like, oh, you shouldn't get onto people with small cleanups and whatnot. That's actually how I get into a project. I find a couple misspellings, I fix the 3 misspellings, and I make a pull request. The next time I find just a small little bug, like 1 or 2 line bug, and I make a pull request for that. And this gets me into the code. And I was like, oh, you shouldn't get onto it. But this is actually a problem that I know even the CNCF and Kubernetes has had as well. And basically what KPI is basically saying, hey, we made, as a company, 600 useful contributions to this project. And the problem is they're just making these pull requests for KPI. Basically, you only get to make a certain number of these small fixes before you're expected to move on. And this really makes sense. This guy isn't being a jerk, and he's just trying to make sure that these people aren't really grabbing fame and fortune for their work. So I say that please feel free to always use that as a way to get into a project. The whole point is you shouldn't try to be making, your merit off of that you fixed 30 spellings and submitted individual pull requests for 30 misspellings. Oh man, this should have been in the cloud. This should have been in the cloud. I did not know Oracle offered a free tier service that was as good as it is. Not only do they have $300 in credits for 30 days, which is a lot of credits, but they have this always free one with 2 AMD compute VMs and up to 4 instances of their ARM, which is super cool if you want to play around with ARM. So anyways, now the one thing I have is I refuse to call it the OCI, which is what they want. They want you to, the Oracle Cloud, I don't even know why they have the I, but they have OCI here everywhere. This is, let me zoom in. I refuse to call it the OCI because the OCI is the Open Container Initiative, and they should know this because, one second, where are they? Look at this, they're right here. Oracle is a member of the actual real OCI, so I don't know, and this OCI existed before the Oracle Cloud existed, so like, really not sure. But they do have a free tier, so if you want to play around, especially if you're wanting to play around with ARM, go check that out. Now that being said, remember the Gravaton challenge from AWS. So if you're playing around with ARM, it's worth it to probably check out that Gravaton challenge that I talked about last week. You have till the end of July, I think, so you have some time. But it will take some work. So if you're interested in ARM servers, definitely check out the Gravaton, the challenge by AWS. And if you refer to OCI, or I refer to OCI, it will be the Open Container Initiative. Always. All right, let's jump into open source projects that I think you should know and I have curated for you. The first is Kubeflow. Kubeflow 1.3 was released like 3 weeks ago, and I forgot to announce it, and so Kubeflow 1.3 is out. This is a ML pipeline, so basically this is ML ops for your machine learning. So if you're into machine learning and want to check it out, now it runs on Kubernetes, and this is actually the episode I have failed to deliver for you for like 3 weeks, or 4 weeks now maybe, because I really wanted to make Kubeflow at home easy. And I wanted to make it so that my problem was with Kubeflow is that it always kind of depended on your infrastructure and your hardware and the likes, but I wanted to make it so that you didn't have to worry about that and everyone could follow along. And really, it became very tedious and tiresome, and my video has never quite worked because I always find a problem with my release. And so anyways, I've been working on it. I've been working very hard, and it just hasn't happened yet. But Kubeflow 1.3 is out, and yeah, supports a lot of awesome stuff, and you should check it out. The GitHub blog, this is about their security bounty bug program. Really cool. They paid out 500,000 in bug bounties just last year. I think that's what it was. Yeah, 524,000. Really cool. I love bug bounty programs. I'm never good enough to actually find one of these security flaws. But it's a cool read, and is my obligatory. I'm just joking. I'm not played by GitHub. I really do like their blog though. So, and then this is their packages container registry is generally available, and it fixes one of the big flaws that I complained about last year, which is you can't make a no auth container registry. So now you can have no authentication in front of your container registry so that other people can pull your container without logging in to GitHub, even if it's a public container. So you should go check that out, especially if you already use GitHub Actions and you do it for package management and releases. Your containers can live right there beside everything else and your code, which is super cool. All right, so last week, I know that you guys remember I said that you're doing your CLI for Containerd wrong. Containerd ships with a CLI that is absolutely atrocious. It was designed for unit testing and ensuring and integration testing. So it was designed to just be used that way. And it's not great. And I know people are going to hate on me for that, but it's really not great. nerdctl, it's by Containerd, is the good CLI to Containerd. So if you've been like, oh, I don't want to use Containerd because it sucks to use, that's because you're using the wrong CLI. nerdctl actually has a Docker API. So if you've used Docker, this is the exact same as Docker, and you can do everything that you could with Docker with nerdctl. So no more complaining that Containerd has the worst CLI, because now you know that it doesn't. All right, a project that I reported on last year, it is now released its 1.21 release. Now this is an interesting project because I'm torn between this and what is it called? Never mind. Anyways, I'm torn between this and some other things, but it's a pretty cool Kubernetes distribution. It is kind of opinionated, but it's self-hosted, isolated control plane with a single static binary. Basically, it's kind of a hybrid between K3s and the, what is it called? The Cluster API project. It kind of wraps both of those up, and it's kind of cool. Now, I need to play around with it more. I actually wish that it was more opinionated like the Talos project. That's what I couldn't remember. I'm torn between this, the Talos project, and BottleRocket. All three of those are really cool, and yeah, I'm torn between them. There are some things I really, really like about this, and you guys should definitely check it out. If you're in need of a system like this, you should definitely put this one as one of the ones that you check out, along with Talos systems and BottleRocket. All right, NAML. It's not YAML. Or is it? Or is it? Is it YAML? All right, I actually haven't used it yet. But basically, this person got fed up with YAML, like probably every single person that has used YAML has gotten fed up with YAML. And it just uses Go, which is pretty cool. So it uses interfaces that can be used with YAML to do your Go YAML structs. Now, I haven't tried it yet. It's on my list of things to try. I'm interested in seeing how well it does, because I do dislike YAML in general. But I'm not sure I dislike it enough to have yet not another bar. It's like the NoSQL. The NoSQL of YAML. That's happening. The no YAML. It's just NAML, not no YAML. It should have been no YAML. Anyways. Yeah, check it out. I found Devtron. If any of you guys are familiar with Heroku, I can't say the stupid word now, but if you're familiar with that word, and I know you all know what I'm talking about, this is basically that of Kubernetes, which I thought was kind of interesting and cool. Now, this would probably also tie into your GitOps and whatnot. So I haven't devved I read the word zero. I cannot read while speaking. I have not dug fully into exactly what it requires from a GitOps, if you could use Argo CD in conjunction with this, or if this just wants to be your main thing. I don't know all of those yet. I saw it. It's interesting because deploying on top of Kubernetes is always that next problem that you have to solve at some point. And that's what it looks to do. All right, everyone. That's it for this week. I appreciate all of you, all of the support you guys give me. Yeah, thanks for everything. I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Like I said, taking a little break, but I hope to come back better and stronger after that break so that I can make even better content and have a little bit better streams, as well as I'm trying to streamline some of my video making so that it's not only less painful, I can produce more videos faster so that you don't have a whole month where Merrick doesn't make any videos at all. Not only that, I have been working really hard on making that Kubernetes class. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. I've made some really cool graphics. I had my brother-in-law make me one of the graphics, and so it's turning out hopefully to be really fantastic and hopefully really useful to you guys. So go ahead and check that Git repository out and let me know what you guys think, and let me know if it could be made better. I'm completely fine with adding in extra lessons or reorganizing it if you guys think that that would be better. I'm trying to make it a lesson plan that digs a little deeper than normal, but not too deep right away. Anyways, thanks everyone. Have yourselves a fantastic week, or 3 weeks, or 2 weeks. And I will see you guys not next week, not the next week, but the week after, later in July.